The hits just keep coming for the Indiana Fever. Not unexpected that Sophie Cunningham ruled out for the season, but devastating nonetheless as the injuries just continue to pile up. Of course, Sydney Colson already out for the season, Ari McDonald out for the season, and now Sophie Cunningham out for the season. That's with Caitlin Clark still out and having been out for much of the season. The season was saved against the Connecticut Sun, but can it be salvaged? I guess is the question here, because Sophie Cunningham was one of the better players for the Fever all year. She is going to be tough to replace, even if the rest of the squad can get to full strength. But as they've battled, as they've continued to fight, to me, you don't punt on the season because you don't know how many chances you get, and you have to reward that grit. The question just goes back to, again, when is Caitlin Clark going to be back? There remains no clarity on that topic, and the moves that they've made in the process since aren't related to Clark's injury. So that's the long and short of it when you're dealing with it for the Indiana Fever. They make another move in the process of Sophie announcing her being out with an MCL tear, which, by the way, the MCL tear, relatively speaking, is good news because it's not an ACL tear. She's not out for like a year or anything, but she's out for the rest of this year. And they're going to miss her toughness. They're going to miss her shooting. They're going to miss her playmaking to a degree. The other move that they made was the signing of Shea Petty. This is essentially a one-for-one swap with Kyra Lambert from the way it seems to be understood here. More of a veteran presence, another small guard. I know people are going to complain about that, but she most recently played with the Sparks. They're just signing former Sparks players since McDonald and now Petty here, averaging 5 points, 2.7 assists on a hardship contract. Now, as far as the small guard complaint goes, guys, I mean, one thing you have to remember is you are scraping the bottom of the barrel, and I don't mean this as a disrespectful way to put it, just in the sense that all the teams have already filled their roster. They've already scoured the market. They've already brought in injury replacements. There aren't that many players left available. Maybe you find a diamond in the rough, and the Fever did that with Ari McDonald. Then as far as like a direct replacement for Sophie Cunningham, well, I don't think that becomes available until Cunningham misses a game. So to me, the Petty Lambert was a swap. For whatever reason, Lambert didn't work out. They didn't think she was good enough. Again, they needed a veteran, whatever the case may be. That was sort of a one-to-one swap versus Sophie's replacement coming a little bit later down the line. The Fever confirmed this was not related to Caitlin Clark, these moves. This is from the Indy Star, little section of that piece right here, screen grabbed. The switch from Lambert to Petty, this Chloe Peterson, had to do with attempting to fill the void of Cunningham's veteran impact on the floor as much as possible. It is also because the Fever only have 2 hardship spots at the moment. Indiana will become eligible to sign a 3rd hardship player after Friday's game against Minnesota, as Cunningham needs to miss a game before the hardship waiver activates. So there you have it. As far as that goes, when you're talking about replacing Cunningham, who's just going to be, it's just going to be difficult to replace. And you look at the structure of the team now and the lineup, and you do wonder, even when they're back to full strength, how much different it is than last season. But you have to maintain, when you've got Clark and Mitchell on the floor, you can cook anybody. And then other players maybe step up. I mean, can Odyssey Sims play like she did in the second half of that game? Can Brianna Turner bring something you hadn't seen before? Because I want to see more from Brianna Turner rather than Dantas at this point. At least, Turner can play defense and rebound. And she makes, better decisions offensively. She's certainly not an offensive stalwart, but she makes better decisions offensively than Timpson to me. So I would like to see Turner play more for this team going forward. You got to see what Sims can bring to the table. You got to give them a chance to bring in a Sophie Cunningham replacement, which would be in the form of a wing, I would imagine. A player who can swing like that. And then, there's still the emotions of the team. I mean, this is Caitlin Clark. Love you always, Soph. And then Sydney Colson says, hey, y'all, Ari McDonald, Caitlin Clark, get a load of this guy, Sophie Cunningham. Shake my head crazy, bro, says Clark, who's still sidelined and wasn't with the team on Sunday. Now, the team said she was back rehabbing for a potential return to the court. Of course, Stephanie White said that the hope is that she'll be back before the end of the season. I mean, it's getting to the point where I think a little bit more clarity may be owed here. I understand no timeline was put in place to not pressure Caitlin Clark, and she should do from what I've gleaned, this is a deliberate process, step by step to build her up. But still, as many fans as she has, as many fans as the Fever have, I think a little bit of clarity on the potential of when she could be back, the odds, the chances, the time frame, any of that would be welcome. I mean, seeing her in practice, I guess, would be the answer. And we haven't seen the Fever return to practice yet. I believe they had the day off after having the day off yesterday. But some answers are probably owed, given the level of interest and given the level of star power and given the level of grace, I think that has been provided. And then there's the season marching on with a hard schedule. And the Fever, according to Tankathon, have the hardest schedule remaining left on the docket. And that's never good when you're fighting for a playoff spot. That's why that Connecticut Sun win was so important. Here's the look at that remaining schedule. Now, I do think there's a chance the Fever can upset the Lynx on Friday. Part of the reason that this schedule is the toughest is they play the Lynx 3 times. But it's a little deceiving because they play the Lynx the last game of the season. So there's a world where Minnesota's sitting everybody for that game since they've clinched. And then they play the Lynx on Friday. Minnesota is in New York Tuesday night, tonight. Then they're in Atlanta Thursday night. And then they're in Indiana Friday night. That's 3 games in 4 days, including a back-to-back with travel when they do indeed play the Fever. The Fever will, of course, be coming off 4 days of rest at that point in time. So if there was ever a chance for an upset, it would be then. It would be then in that situation. Completely fresh Fever versus a spent Lynx. No one is trying to make the case that the Fever are on the Lynx's level at this point in time. But that would buy them a little bit more time if they can win one of those 2 games somehow. And, as far as if Caitlin Clark can lace up her shoes and be at 100%, the Fever have a chance against anybody. I mean, that's why everybody's gathered, right? That's why everybody talks about her, because they believe that, no? They believe in her abilities, no? And this team has showed it's continued to fight, so I just can't see them quitting or giving up or throwing in the towel or tanking like I've seen out there, to borrow the Tankathon name. But it's getting tougher and tougher to stay afloat.